It's quite a challenging question to ask. I think, I'm reaching a stage now where I can embrace my actual age. So I think I've crossed the bridge of being 21 forever. It's just like you look in the mirror and you're like, nope, I do not look like what other 21-year-olds look like. I need to accept that I'm old. But in accepting wisdom, one does come to terms with accepting their journey. One does come to terms with accepting the path that they have traveled, and then you then take heed of all the lessons that you've learned. And then you realize that, no, okay, cool. So now not only do I read encyclopedias, but I have my own internal encyclopedia of emotions and of understanding and comprehension of society and life at large. So I think having grown up and being born in 1991 at a very uncertain and a very unfamiliar time within this country, I think, and also being born into what some would now call a corner of privilege, and having been reminded of the privilege as a young black child who had been afforded, private education, from nursery school. So I think what made it easier for me to not notice whatever stigma was surrounding who I was and my difference at that time was the fact that I was fighting many other battles at that time already. I think the insults could not stick on my body because I had already gotten accustomed to being called a coconut. I had already gotten accustomed to being called many derogatory terms before my sexual orientation came into the picture. So I don't think it added salt to the wound. Thus I don't think I was as affected as some of my rainbow brothers and siblings might have been, but I think having grown up with a limited language or a limited understanding of life itself. And when I say life itself, I mean, this is primary school. Biology isn't something that we're taught about a lot. In fact, biology isn't anything that we do up until the later years. So you're kind of, as a kid, of growing up with all these conflicting emotions. You're growing up with all this uncertainty, and young Muzi was growing up with all of that. And you kind of know that you're different, and you kind of can suss society out and know that my difference won't be pleasant to those who will hear about it. So as a young kid, when you do that, it's kind of like when a kid is ashamed of playing over or like playing during, curfew, or breaking any rule. We all try to hide that because we have that fear of what's going to come of it, because you've got that uncertainty instilled in you. So I kind of think it was something like that. And then you kind of want to overdo another element of yours so that when you do land, you land on a soft kind of foundation. So I think young Muzi then took that difference and kind of turned the compass around. And I think in turning the compass around, I wanted at all times to not be a victim, to as much as society might say that I'm a victim, to as much as society might say that my difference, as much as I never understood it back then, as much as society was saying that it is different because it's not typically what we expect heterosexuality to be, I needed to combat it with something. And from a very young age, a lot of it was my accomplishments, and it was my achievements, because of the stigma that came around being a young black child going to private education. You kind of felt the pressure of having to prove worthy of going to private schools, of having to prove to family and to friends that my parents aren't wasting the thousands of money they're paying on my education. I'm actually appreciative of the opportunity, and I'm taking as much advantage of it as I can. So I kind of think that that's where my drive came in, that's where my motif came in. And only up until I grew up and then I got the language, and then I learned of homosexuality, and having, then being alert and aware of it, and having then seen the expressions of other people who I then could liken myself with. I think that was when my turning point happened, because not only did I get some sort or some sense of affirmation, not only did I get some sense of intellect and insight, but I also got some form of guidance, because now this was now post high school, and it's just I don't have my uniform to hide behind anymore. I don't have my badges to hide behind anymore. I don't have my accolades, my scrolls, my achievements. Yes, I'm on all boards in the school, but now I'm in varsity. All those boards I've left behind. What then do you do? What then do you latch onto? And it isn't. in being wary of that I think I embarked on my own self-discovery and on my own journey of just finding who I am individually, finding my voice, finding my stance, and in doing so, I then found some form of self-contentment, because you then embrace life and you embrace that this is my now, and I can either continue living in uncertainty, or I can just, in a messed up society, find some stillness or find some peace, and utilize the education that I've been blessed to accumulate, but also then use my voice accurately. I think from a young age, I've always been an activist of some form. I remember me learning how to swim was not because I wanted to swim. It was because even from grade 3, we would go for, I remember you'd have a swimming period and you'd get to the swimming pool, and us as Black children would be kicking our feet by the shallow end. And for me, as much as I never understood it, but it discomforted me. I wanted to be with my best friends in the deep end. I wanted to have the ability to swim from this end to the other end without having any issues. And I wanted to fight the stereotype. And because I was aware playing soccer tackies and playing in the field and playing soccer and getting dirty and injuring their body and getting scars, no, I knew that definitely was not me. So if there's anything that I was certain about as a kid, was that there was no masculinity in me whatsoever. So I think I needed something to latch onto, and swimming, was kind of my escape. And when I realized that it was my escape, I think that's when I then took it seriously. And it enabled me, to represent, my school, represent my province, and at large represent my country. And that, for me, was a beautiful thing that a young Muzi decided on, and affirmed and worked hard towards. So I think in all my activism, it's all just been fighting for the betterment of some part of society, and I then also had to realize that it's not about me, as much as people might speak of that overachiever, as much as people might speak of that goody tissues, or whatever other labels that were attached to me growing up. Those things never had an effect on me, because they were speaking positively about a young Black child. And in so doing, they were speaking positively about a young Black gay child. And in that, it encouraged me to explore my difference, and that it encouraged me to explore my individuality. And with each opportunity I received, I then learned how to do my face. So the young dreams I had and how I envisioned myself to be, I then had, and I built the skill and the technique to accomplish that. So now, not only did I feel good inside, but when I looked in the mirror, and when I look in the mirror, I recognize and I love the queen that I see, because a young Muzi wanted to see this queen. So I hope that answers it. And I think, having noticed how social media has changed, and I think that's why I take, such conversations, I'd like to call, very seriously, because I think intentionally it needs to land on young minds. Young minds need to be reminded by another young mind that it is at those very vulnerable times that you have to somewhat consecrate a crutch to hold on to when the world turns awry, because it does. And those are things that we can't avoid. And it's only in growing up that I've come to terms that pain it's a constant that has to be there. Unfortunately, as mothers and parents and as uncles and aunts, we need to remind ourselves that when our children fall, just be there to pick them up. So I think I want to remind young kids that when you fall, or when you experience failure, or when you experience discrimination, embrace it, accept it, but pick yourself up. And in a world of uncertainties and very unfamiliar things, remind yourself that the only thing that you really can be certain about is who you are. And once you embrace who you are, and once you embark on a journey of self-discovery, so I think in a nutshell, that's just how Muzi has always dealt or faced the world. And I think in that I always needed an answer, and I've always been a child who's wanted to answer. Bragging rights about my accomplishments, because as much as you may come in the audience of my school peers, and as much as you may come and make or take a dab at my at my sexual orientation, at that time I'm going to remind you that I am position at that time, I'm going to remind you. And in so doing, about speaking about what is there, you get to be belittled. And the only way you're being belittled is not by me bullying another, but it's just about me turning a situation that you had set up and built up to belittle me, and reminding you of the reality, and also reminding you that you too are human, and that you too can also get laughed at, and that you too can also hurt. Not really to stop bullying for me at that time, but I think it was just saying, I knew 3 months or 3 years down the line, if I fought this bullying in grade 8, I'm going to have a pleasant grade 11, and I'm going to have somewhat a pleasant matric. And I think from a very young age, I just knew which battles to fight and which battles weren't mine. And I'm a vehement believer that if it's red, it's red. There is no lens, or there's nothing that you can do to your eyes to switch red from being red to being black. And if there's human beings who want to convince themselves that the color that we're talking about is not red, it actually is black, then so be it. If they are seeing black and I'm seeing red, so be it. It is my duty to force them into seeing the color that I'm seeing. So it is not my duty to force society to embrace and accept me as my being and as the individual that I am. My duty is just to be. And in being me, hoping that it encourages anyone else to just be, and to stop looking at being from the eyes or the lens or the vantage point of sexuality, and just look at it from individuality. Because once you start pushing and driving and fighting for individualism, then you as a heterosexual man or woman, then you as a homosexual identifying individual who's a part of the rainbow family, then you lose that stigma. Then we become the generation to break stigma. We become the generation to change narratives. And the only way to change narratives is by creating a society where my narrative can be embraced, respected, and just loved as much as I embrace, accept, and love the narratives of others. So I think just from a very young age, that's kind of just been my approach. And I always use the example of language, because before I didn't know of homosexuality, so I didn't have the language. And when I knew of the language, I then could identify. And now I didn't know, the significance of the things that I was going through. But now that I do know, I can testify. So I think we just need to, especially with the growth of social media, especially with now the launch of a magazine that's online. I think we need to be the generation that changes the concepts around magazines. I think we need to be the generation that stops the focus on magazines just being about pretty pictures and pretty bodies. There's content in magazines. There's interviews that journalists hold. We get interviewed, so it's not about the photo shoot. There's much more. We're not just pictures or faces or posts. We're human beings, and we need to remind ourselves that we are human beings. So I think I was so blessed to be approached with such an opportunity, because I think that's the generation, and those are the younger platform where they can hear and listen and comprehend other young voices. Wow. You know what? I think it's a tricky question, because I think I'm pretty split in terms of where I am, just mentally or spiritually. I think one of the greatest changes that happened in my life is having embarked on my ancestral journey, and having gone through my initiation, and that's being becoming a sangoma, which is a diviner or a healer. So I think that shift in my life, or that change, for me completely transformed and changed everything. And when I say everything, I don't mean like circumstances or elements of my life. I literally just mean that what was altered was my belief system. What was altered was my faith system. Because, not saying it was not strong before, but before it was just a system that was begging and pleading for myself. And now it needed to become, and that'll persist and persevere up until they receive positive and better change for another. So in now embodying that mentality, I am able to vehemently say God, and in doing that, I have become able to live life. Because I think a challenging thing about living a life to please others, a challenging thing about living a life to make others happy, is that one day you wake up and you're just like, I'm 26, I've got trunk loads of accolades, I've got trunk loads, and I can remember being at these places, I can remember receiving these awards, but I can't remember what it felt like. I don't remember how was I happy with myself, was I proud of myself. I don't remember all those elements, and it just feels like for a long time I've been a Duracell bunny that was just consistently working at delivering results that I was hoping would kind of just make my parents even more embracive or accommodating or accepting of my difference, at a time when I then sit them down and also increase their language, and give them what I now understand, and let them know and let them in on who I am, and I always feel that that's something that a person of difference must always remember, and I'm able to remember it even now as a Sangoma, is that I have gone through the transitionary phase. I have physically gone through it. I have, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually gone through it. So I've embraced that change, and I've accepted it, and I've accepted all the terms and conditions that come with it. I've sacrificed all that and I'm still learning to sacrifice even more that I need to sacrifice. I've made the compromises that I need to have made. So there's people who are in my family, who are in my friend circle, who also are going to take heed and take time as their brother. It's a different ball game. So they need to carry and treat and respect me even more. And in the climate that we're living in, it is even more important, for the LGBTQIA plus identifying community to ensure that they have a security system, but to also just allow others who they are close with to transition with them, and to transition as they transition. So I think where I'm at now, my focus is on building, and it's on sharing it's in sharing what I have learned, what I've experienced, and how I've interpreted my experiences. So I'm currently doing a Bachelor of Education, and before it was just because, again, I needed to dream bigger. I had then entered an industry of makeup, which made me incredibly happy. And I ticked every single bucket list at the company that I was working for. And I had a sensational career, but I think I was reaching a point where I then could feel stagnant. I was feeling stagnant. I was feeling like I had served my purpose, and I needed another challenge. I needed, for me to remain passionate about this craft of mine. I needed something else that was going to elevate it. And then I entered into the freelance industry, and entering the freelance industry, because I think I was driven by passion more than I was driven by money. I was able to have what I can now look back and call a very successful career as a freelance makeup artist that was self-taught and self-made, and self-kept. So I think when I'd realized all of that, and when I started seeing more and more of my rainbow brothers and sisters be more encouraged to explore fashion, to explore, playing around with how they look and how they're going to appear, get seen publicly, to be in very high heels, to show them that I too can do it, to show them that, but when I do it, you stop and stare, but you stop and stare at something good. And now to see more and more people do it again, you then reach of like, what's the next thing that I need to do? I was a part of a generation of people that kind of set a foundation for individuality, and I was able to achieve that because I was not trying to become anything else that I was not. I was not seeing other sisters of mine and other brothers of mine have to say, oh, okay, I can also do this, exploring the things that life is offering me, and figuring and listening to my intuition about more, and realizing that if I'm not going to, in terms of career, be anything that I want to be right now, I'm definitely going to live as anything that I want to live. And, again, with more language, that's where you get identifications where I identify as non-binary. I identify as a trans woman, because I am in transition of becoming who I want to be. I think I've embarked on a journey of having done that with the self, and now with who has been placed in my journey. I'm able to medically embark on transitions that make me happy. So I think you then decide to dream up bigger. So I think what people can definitely accept is a place of learning that's coming soon. And I think in a nutshell, that is the best way I can put where my prayers are guided, the best way I can put where my eyes are at. It's just, I think people can just anticipate and wait for a place of learning. And I call it a place of learning because we're still praying for direction and we're still praying for specifics. But I think I just wanted to be a haven of both internal and external healing and learning. So not only do we then produce or create graduates who are going to be incredible in industries, but we also, create graduates who are going to remain hiring to want to be better than me. And having gone through, my practicals in education, I did realize that my passion now is greatly to make people greater and want greater than I was able to achieve. It is to remind people of the opportunity they have. It is to remind people that they are gifted, that they are talented, and that they are smart, and that they can dream bigger, and that they can want more. In all interviews that that I will be aligning myself with, in all interviews that I will be accepting, I think in all spreads and work and videos and campaigns where my name and my face will be appearing, I think people can always anticipate those places to be places of learning. I think with growing up, you realize that it's good to build a following. It's good to get the likes. It's good to be popular, but it's good to have some sense of fame, especially with social media. It's good to trend. It's good to go viral. It's good to be known, to be seen, to be loved. Especially if you're a person who grew up unloved and unseen. It's like such a thrill for you as a person. So it's beautiful to aspire for all of that. But I think it alters everything when you then just start doing it for you. When you just start doing it just because you want to do it, when you start doing it because it makes you happy, and not because you want to trend, and not because you want to be complimented, and not because you want to go viral, but just because it is what I feel like doing. So it's what I want to do right now to make myself happy and not my following happy. And I think in doing that, we get to show the world just how different we all are, straight or LGBTQIA plus, and I think once we lose these social ties that we have to masculinity and femininity, then I think we'll just become a more embracive society. But I think fighting inclusivity and breaking stigma and changing narratives is just by being the difference that you want to see in the world. And I think with growing up, I realized just how literal that phrase is and that saying is. Whereas before, it was just kind of I want to be a great architect. That's the difference I want to make in the world. I want to be a great architect. Whereas now it's just a lot of pain around. I don't want to be envy. I don't want to be hurt. I don't want to be pain. Because I felt it, I've experienced it, and it's not been pleasant. I want to be what I want to experience. So if I want to experience love, I want to be of love. If I want to experience comfort and care, I need to be of comfort and of care. And if I want people to be encouraged and empowered for self-contentment and self-love and self-care, I need to be content with self. I need to love thyself, and I need to care for thyself, and just hope that it reaches who it needs to reach. So I think it's just an encouraging people that when you tap into passion and when you tap into talent, ensure that you're doing it for the right reasons. And that's the best way we can fight discouragement. And that's the entities that we also need to fight if we're trying to achieve an inclusive and a world where representation isn't something that you have to research, where representation isn't something that you have to have or think about. Representation is something that you are, that you live, and that you expect. And And I think that's our way forward. So I think that's what people can anticipate. But a place of learning will definitely come with products. But I think now the products that'll come is much more than just lipstick and eyeshadow. And, also being a mental health activist, I'm now able to utilize my gift in creating products that are going to enable people, irrespective of their belief system, but just to dedicate moments of meditation, to dedicate moments of self-care. So I think, the gift and having gone through the calling that I went through, I'm now able to not only speak about self-care, but I'm now able to use the gift in starting, Muzi Zuma, which is going to be a store that is going to be not even a store. I think it's going to be, again, a haven that is going to go into candles, going into bath salts, into soaps, into that area, into the area of aromatics, but also into the therapy of the soul and the therapy of self. But also in doing so, I think for me, the best way that you can promote self is by showing people that you yourself have power to heal yourself. So it is just merely a candle, but it is a candle that comes with instructions that you're going to take an hour out of your time, where you're going to lock yourself in the bathroom, where you're going to run bath water and have these bath salts and light this candle, which comes with essential oils, which comes with all the natural herbs that are going to calm both your nervous system, your emotions, and your body. And then also in that moment, you get to take care of yourself. What I've always wanted to achieve and accomplish, and now I've got the ability to do so. So as much as I've dreamt of a cosmetic line, and as much as an aspirational entrepreneur, I've made mistakes that have gotten me into great debt and into horrible mistakes. But again, that's what happens when you're passionate and when you're a dreamer. You're just like, I want a lipstick with my name on it, and then you will go trust and go do and go order and then not receive it. And then God was like, I saw your dream, I received it, I embraced it, I accept it, but that's too small. You're gonna have the lipstick, but I need you to have so much more, because I need everybody who is going to wear your cosmetic line to stand and feel as beautiful inside as they will on the outside. And I think that's what has allowed Makeup by Muzi to be so different and to be such a standout, is because in that 1 hour that anybody sat in my chair, for me it was as important to remind you of how beautiful you are internally, because as much as people might think it's just a whole lot of highlighter, it's just internal glow that comes in. Because once you and it's not even confidence, but it's once you just show somebody love, it just does things to people. So their smiles are bigger, their eyes are brighter, and when that happens, their face is even more pretty. So I think that's definitely where soon to be 30 Muzi is heading, and I think that's where, and that's what people can expect.